I know it's been a long time since we did a lecture, and a lot of people were pestering for a lecture. Hopefully, we can make you happy today with a lot of surprising new things that are going to help us all. First of all, I want to dedicate this lecture to all the doctors and nurses over the last 2 years that risked their life, risked their careers, risked their licenses, their family, their friends to stick up for the truth. What's gone on in the last couple of years, in the practice for 42 years, I can't believe what I've seen, because people who took an oath to help people actually had problems with following through on that oath. I want to congratulate all those doctors that had the guts to stand up to the system. God bless all of you. And for you folks that are being exposed for not actually helping humanity but hurting humanity, it's time to repent. You don't want to get into this life and the next one with the way you've been behaving in the last one. So I'm talking to them. Thank you for all those doctors that really helped us out and had voices. Dr. McCullough is one, amongst others, but I'm going to leave all the rest of them out because they have enough trouble. Number two, since the last lecture, I've watched the devolution of society. All of us can't believe what we actually have seen taking place. Our churches let us down. You'd let us down, didn't you, Ted? It's time to repent for you. Schools let us down. Our jobs let us down. You can take all the athletes. I could care less about sports. Hollywood let us down. Society's crumbling from mischief. We're living through the second greatest hoax in history. If you don't know what the first hoax was, watch The Ultimate Lie, Find Your Way Home. That's the first greatest hoax. You're living through the second one right now. I got great news for all of us. We're going to be able to take our health back to ourselves, but first, I got to mention a couple things. As everybody realizes, I've turned 65. It's the Medicare years. In my life at 65, starting to look at getting older, I've been in some assisted living places that I thought were excellent. I've been in hospitals with old people, and you start realizing I might end up in one of these one day. As you get older, that's what you're starting to look for. Now, watching what happened in the nursing homes, I have redoubled my effort on my own personal health because I cannot believe that we're actually locking people into a nursing home, forcing experimental medications on them, not letting anybody visit them. I can't imagine spending the last years of your life like that. My heart broke for what these elderly people had to go through, alone, dying with strangers. I never want to see that happen again. I have a whole bunch of doctors and nurses as patients. I actually have moles everywhere. When one of the gals in Milan says to me, an emergency room nurse comes in and says, "You're not going to believe it. A motorcycle guy comes in, DOA, dead on arrival. The head nurse says, test him for COVID. She said he's dead. Test him anyway. He's positive. Motorcycle fatality, complications of COVID. That's an extra 40 grand. To watch a system that was paid to lose. Saturday, I sat with this gentleman who gave me his card. Chief Executive Officer, Medical Director of a large hospital, and I'm letting him stay anonymous. He told me disgustingly that they made $200,000 for every fatality. It was a bonanza. I'm sitting there talking to a doctor thinking I'm living in the twilight zone. He was disgusted at his own hospital, and he's the guy in charge. Renee, a made-up name, works in a hospital. She's a 40-year-old nurse. She came in and said, all these vaccinated injuries are coming in, and they want me to check that they're not vaccinated. And the head nurse said, you got to check that box. And she said, I did not get into this job to lie for you. You check the box if you want to lie. Too many stories are coming out that are absolutely disgusting. Died suddenly has become a movie. We've watched it everywhere, so I'm not really going to belabor the point, but to watch the heart attacks on kids, Dr. McCullough said all these stillborns, as a cardiologist, were heart attacks in the womb. The kids didn't even have a chance to get born. They had a heart attack before they were born. Look it up. We're looking at numbers right now. They're talking about 1 out of 300 in the country having a fatal incident. We've never had a war that posted these kind of numbers. Stay on your toes. Life insurance actuarial tables said we lost 3 years in the last year. Ask your life insurance people what it's like to be going broke from the fatalities because they can't afford it anymore. You and I are going to have to pay for this. The bottom line is, I've never felt the urgency on my own self as I'm getting older to check all the boxes to make sure I don't got to go to any one of those places until I have to, because you might not leave. My wife has a couple of friends that she goes to lunch with once a month. Maria, Bev, and Sue. Bev had a nice little chest cold a couple weeks ago, and I suggested to her she was having trouble getting over it. She's a long-term, extremely healthy patient. She lives alone and she's nervous, and I suggested, Bev, go to urgent care, maybe get a breathing treatment, get an antibiotic, something that can help you over this pneumonia. So a couple weeks ago, she calls me and says, my heart's kind of out of rhythm. They want to put a pacemaker in. I said, great, put a pacemaker in. They do well. I got patients with them. I got friends with them. I think they're great if you have to have one. They work wonderfully. So I encouraged her to get the pacemaker, figuring she'd be out in a day. This was 2 Thursdays ago. Friday, they do the pacemaker. It's fine. Lauren calls me Sunday. Her liver and her kidney failed, and she died on Monday. My healthiest patient in 36 hours. How your liver and kidney can fail in a day and a half with a perfect kidney and liver. I want to get the records, but I don't know what they did. But when you get near the hospital, weird things are happening now, and it's time to try to take your health seriously because you don't want to go there. I have patients coming in that swear up and down that they will never go to the hospital again because the people are disgusted at what's happening behind the doors. You're losing the public. They're terrified of you. Now, I'm going to bear what do I have to do? This is what it takes to know you. How well do you actually know you? People come in with all these ideas of what's wrong with them. It's embarrassing how backward we have become in health. So I'd like to run you through something about me. I lost ridiculously healthy patients in the hospital. I was shocked at the people that, when the men got behind the door, they didn't have the guts to do what the women did. The women said, I don't want remdesivir and a ventilator. The men didn't say that. I lost the men, the women walked out. I can't believe how many that I lost here. So in the middle of all this stuff, I start to realize hospitals are paid to lose. Would you go to a sporting game if you knew ahead of time that they were paid to lose? They're paid to lose, and people are going there willingly knowing that. This isn't a health crisis. We're at war. Now, in my journey, what has taken me to try to function to 65, this is my short story of the things I have to do. This is what I want you to learn about yourself, because we can't go anywhere when we're sick now because it's getting scary, because you might not draw the honest, sincere doctor. You might draw the one that follows Fauci's follies. Everybody that followed Fauci's follies was gone. Number one, I was a sickly kid. When I was born, all I did was throw up the first year of my life. I threw up constantly. My mom said they used about 50 different formulas till one would stay in my stomach because they thought I was going to die. I was bottle fed, end to end. I had iron overloaded in my system till I drove my stomach zinc out, compromised my digestive tract, and had a lifetime of allergies as a result of bottle feeding. I had enough earaches and sore throats for 10 people. My whole life was strep throat, amoxicillin, and Augmentin. I took enough of that. It was like candy after a while. I quit taking it. My whole life was irritated with my ears until Dr. Versendal helped me out. So I've got a compromised immune system. I have insulin resistance off and on. I used to have higher glucose, higher LDL, high triglycerides. I have secret gout. I have crazy out-of-control gout that my blood test says I don't have. My diet tells me completely different. I thought hockey was making me sore. My gout's making me sore. I have a hospital-induced bone graft infection, and my uric acid levels are normal. I have a permanent bone graft infection from the oral surgeon. They put bad bone in my face. I had yellow toothpaste coming out of the side of my gums for like a month. It's there every single day. If I have one scoop of ice cream, this thing will thrive in about 15 minutes. My whole immune system has been compromised from a bone graft infection, and I fight it constantly, and I'm tired of it. That's another little hospital mischief in my life. It took me a lifetime to actually understand me. I've had 2 inguinal hernias. I went to Canada to get this one stitched. That cost $5 grand, and the pills fixed these 2. I wish I would have tried harder on the one in my left groin, and I didn't. So that was $5,000 just to get it stitched shut, and they did a great job at Shouldice. If you have to have it done, forget the mesh, pay the cash, and go to Canada. I got early esophagitis because from bending over and adjusting, me and Dr. Gill take turns pushing our stomach down because I get a burn in my stomach from bending over and pushing. I don't need esophageal cancer. Lots of people have gone down with esophageal cancers without many symptoms. I got to put this fire out in my stomach because I got enough acid shooting up from all the adjusting. I've ruptured my L3, L4 disc. One of my kids jumped on my back when I was little, blew my back out. I worked crooked for a week, so I have 1 ruptured disc on the left that I have to get that periodically adjusted by these great chiropractors. I got genetic heart disease. I have out of control numbers. I have a 0 plaque score and a 0 calcium score because of all the things I have to take because I'm terrified to go anywhere near the hospitals. I gave up when I was 12 because I was the kid with all the insurance in the neighborhood. My poor friends were well. I figured this out early. I'm not going back there because I had enough trouble as a kid. It was a nightmare trying to go up around medicine. I have high lipoprotein A. It's taken out family members around me. If you don't catch that, you'll have a problem. Nobody checks for that because there's no pharmaceuticals for it. They just ignore it. I got a hockey neck from being racked a bunch of times. I got an old, stiff, crusty neck that I have to get broken loose periodically. I'm chronically alkaline, because of my bottle feeding. I got to keep my body pushing acidic. I know most of you don't understand that. I had to explain it to the doctors. They don't understand it. They think we all got to be more alkaline. They're nuts. My PSA is a 1, but my cortisol is ridiculous, and I'll show you that in a minute. On top of that, there's 91 things that my body wants every day because that's the pregnancy protocol. If you don't get your minerals daily, the heavy metals find those holes. You're going to absorb heavy metals in a place people don't want to pay for their supplements. Fine, heavy metals will find a place that your vitamins and minerals, particularly your minerals, should have been. You have to stay well mineralized to keep the heavy metals out of your body. People are talking about being dried out. Who's got a dry mouth, a dry lips? Everybody's dry. And people are talking about why is everybody so dry? What do you think that answer is? Glyphosate is a desiccant. It dehydrates stuff. We all have been minerally dehydrated, and they're pulling minerals out of us, and we're all dried out. Got to keep your minerals up that are being pulled out when you eat. Got to keep your salts up to try to keep hydration in your body. If you asked me if I had, Dr. Tent, do you think you got a yeast infection? I don't got a yeast infection, really. You give me enough crummy sugar, I'm going to start to itch in spots that I can't scratch. I can itch until I rip the hide off my arm. I can itch until I bleed. Take a yeast pill, have it stop in 5 minutes. Yes, sugar, crummy sugar can feed a yeast thing in my body that I swear I don't have, but I do. My immune system's been shot. I work on it all the time. And as a result of that, I've survived 42 years here with 3 sick days. I played 3 hockey games a week for 35 years. And this is my biggest expense. I'm trying to manage my decline by knowing me. How well do you know you? A lot of you have been to the doctors. Do you understand what's wrong with you? Fluoride, Lipitor, and flu shots is not health. This is a scam that's been played on the American people for a long time. Excuse me. My biggest expense is my health. Now, I want you to understand something too, because this is true about this. You can possibly do every single thing right. You can take all your supplements. You can do the detox procedures. You can get a nasty cancer and die. It's happened to many people. They tried as hard as they could. They got clipped early. They're very frustrated on the way down. It can still happen. Life's a chance. I can't tell you doing this is going to help. I could go down in 2 weeks from something I don't even know I have today. I'm making the best attempt I can at managing my decline because I'm terrified at what I just witnessed in the last 2 years. They're paid to lose. I never expected that. So when all this stuff starts to happen, one thing I want to ask, if your healthy friends get sick, do me a favor, shut up. Don't judge them. Support them, pray for them, be kind to them, but don't pick them apart. The health industry picks everybody apart ridiculously, and the medical industry will let you die. I'd like to see the health industry get a little more class when people die. Just let them die. Don't analyze if they ate sugar or they ate ice cream or they had a cookie once, because you look like an idiot when you say that. Ernie Harwell dies at 94 as a patient of mine from a bile duct cancer. A health doctor came in and said to me, "What did he do wrong?" I laughed at him. What do you mean, what? He died at 94. You think you want to analyze this is the thinking in health today. It's embarrassing to me after my 5 decades of doing this. Don't judge the people because you don't know the road that they walked. You have to learn you. And when all this stuff happens, we get a phone call from a lab, Quest. We didn't ask for them. They asked for us. They said, how would you like us to set up a lab in your office and we can run any tests we want whenever we want? I'm like, you've got to be kidding. Is this serious? You actually want to do this? Can I have that? Where's my little stick here? Quest. Next. I Skyped with this guy from Washington State yesterday. Do you know how excited I am? We're going to show you a list of tests that you can run. Look back here. Look at this guy. Look at this. Is horrible. Don, you're watching in Washington. This is you. Cleveland Clinic panels are being offered to my patient. This horrible numbers on this guy. His heart's perfect. He's got a 0 calcium score. This is the kind of stuff. He's a patient that's studying how we've already fixed him. This guy's completely open with these catastrophic numbers. So what's important is these 2 guys and me. I want to say something else about this. We are salaried doctors. I didn't tell these guys I pay these guys very well. They're not paid to do anything to you. I refuse to pay to play stuff. They get good salaries. They're not paid to sell you pills, run tests. I refuse to participate in that. Last but not least, before I bring some of these guys up here, I want to officially announce my retirement from hockey. Gotcha. Sorry, Rob. The last concussion and the old hips, I don't think I'm going to make it. I'm 65. I'm terrified of being run over anymore. I've had a long career. I think I'm going to have to say goodbye to all you guys, and I'm doing it right now. I had a blast with all of you. I'll never forget you. Yes. Now, next and last. This is my buddy Vince. Vince, this is you. I know you're out there watching. One of my hockey buddies, who's been a lifetime patient, got the C word. So when he thought this is what you all look like, when you wonder about that little wheezy rattle that comes in, you think you're better, that's what his lung looked like when they thought he was better. He was having trouble skating, his lungs were short of breath, etc., etc. This is what all the patients are coming on. Now when you look at this, I've done chest x-rays for 42 years. You're looking at a weaponized virus. This was manufactured somewhere. Forget that this just came out of the blue. Whose lungs look like that? Now, if you don't have the right nutrition, it took me 6 weeks to do that to him, to get him back on the ice. Can you do that? There's no drug on the planet that would do this, and I want you under care for this. I have a bunch of before and after x-rays with COVID that look that good. That's when they thought they were well. I took a chest. You think you're well? That's a mess. Now, how to get a hold of the office, those ones. You got those? Okay. Now, when me and my son finished the spring league, how can you raise a healthy kid? This is my number 1 son. This young man was homeschooled. we chased butterflies around in the backyard. The little private counted fish, there's 10 fish here. Put them in public school for a couple years, took recess in gym. The teacher said, well, you know, maybe you should try harder. I didn't care because I knew public school, I went to it. It was a complete joke. I told my son, your generation's going to be ruined. Just take your supplements, pay attention. So my son, I want you to look up Dylan Tent on Instagram and TikTok, the Heli Realtor. He's taken his supplements. He's never been to a pediatrician. Watch what he's done with his life. He's got a bunch of bed and breakfasts. He owns a title company. He is a helicopter pilot. He runs Sotheby's for the great Doug Hardy in Northville in Birmingham. And what my son's done with no education, he's awake, he's sharp, and he's on the ball. I did not pester him about his grades. I didn't pester him about his classes. I made sure he had a good personality and he was healthy. He's killing the world right now because I told him, your friends are being ruined in front of you. Just stay healthy and you can shine. At 23, he looked at me and said, Dad, my friends are all messed up. I said, congratulations, you're not. Watch what my son's done with a creative little brain. You'll have a blast how he's teaching realtors how to sell houses, for real. Thank you, Dylan. You've done a great job. I'm very proud of you. Next. There's my cortisol. I'm an angry, upset white guy. They're stealing the country. The churches let us down. The schools let us down. The athletes. Yes, that's my cortisol. I've cut my schedule back. Every man that's paying attention is irritated today because we're being hosed left to right. The election's a joke. The politicians are a joke. The Republicans are a joke. The Democrats are a catastrophe. Our whole system's collapsing. If your cortisol is not up, you might be asleep right now. My testosterone, that tanked my testosterone. Isn't that fun? So this is the point of blood work. I would not know how high this was unless I looked into this. My testosterone's crummy. And I don't look like an estrogenized guy, but that's what stress will do to you. Next. My genetic clotting factor, I've tried to warn my family about this. Both my kids carry it. We treat 5, 6 of these a day. They're everywhere. They're sneaky heart attacks. These are the people that get a bypass and their chest pain continues after the bypass. Watch people come in after an angioplasty, my heart still hurts. That's the one that causes it, and the doctors don't even know what to look for. Next. This is the kid in the candy store moment for me. When I saw this list, you mean to tell me, now right here, the Alzheimer's profile, that Chris Helmsworth guy playing Thor, that's what he tested for. His mom has one of those. His dad has one of those. He's got them both. He's terrified that he's going to end up with Alzheimer's. He's taken a pause from acting to try to find out what to do about his brain. Patients that have genetic histories for Alzheimer's, this blood test is aluminum, lead, mercury. Great test. I'm so excited to do these myself. Now look, I got to pay for these tests. I don't get these for free. I got to pay for these. This is a service we provide here. We all have to pay for our own tests. They bill my insurance company, which I never use anyway. Look at this. The male hormone panel I wanted to run to find out if I'm still a guy as they're trying to tell me that I should be a girl. I'm going to stay on the guy side, thanks. Autoimmune profile. You can pick whatever you want. They bill directly. We have nothing to do with this. It's a service we provide. I'm excited to age better. I'm going to be fine-tuning what I want to run. Let's see, I know my clotting panel. You need to all run that with heart disease. I ran the cancer profile before I signed a second contract for this building. We ran to see what my insides look like if I'd be around long enough to do that. Jeff's going to cover a mold situation. I ran my neurotransmitter profile. I want to see how much serotonin's in my head, how much dopamine's in my head. I'm like a kid in the candy store with this because we got supplements to support this entire sheet. The medical community has basically nothing. They've shot themselves in the foot, they stepped on it, and the awake people are pushing them out of the way. This is how you gain traction on your life before you go to the nut house. The VIP profile, the gut health profile. I just can't believe I have access to this. One I want to do soon is this micronutrient profile. Heavy metal panel in the blood. You don't find many heavy metals in the blood like you do in the hair because the blood is a recent exposure. The hair is a long-term exposure. I want to know that one on myself, but I got to come in fasting. If you've got diabetic relatives, start there. If your thyroid's a mess, start there. Autoimmune stuff, fantastic stuff. But to have them drop this in our lap and say, hey, how would you like to be an extension? Because we hear you guys have a great office. We'd like to be part of it. So we are. Now, because of this, now my boys are coming up, and we got, you know, I got two smart guys here that are going to help me age successfully. I'm breaking down a little bit, so I cut my schedule. These guys are both, Jeff has been with me his entire career. Craig was practicing 2 offices in Brighton and Berkeley. These guys are both first-class practitioners, and they both have taught me things. Craig schooled me on one of my patients. This is for you, George. This is great. Listen to this.
All right, this is the perfect example of somebody, lifestyle and how it can affect blood work. You know, George came in and he was telling me, you know, this guy's got muscles in his eye. He's so well built, it's unbelievable. But he's well trained, well built. And he said, you know, I'm getting this stiffness all over my body. I don't understand it. So we ran this iron panel on him. We found his iron to be extremely high. Typically, iron should be about 80 to 100, and he was 186. He doesn't have the hemochromatosis, but what he does have is iron inflammation. So we started to work on that iron inflammation, get that iron down. Now remember, iron will cause heart attacks and strokes, but before that, it'll cause that stiffness, that ache all over your body. We found out in his lifestyle what he was doing. If he's cooking on cast iron, which the iron will leach out of that cast iron into your food, and then all of his shakes that he was doing to work out, he was putting spinach in, and spinach is loaded with iron. We took those out of his life, put him on the supplementation program. He's already starting to feel the flexibility come back that he didn't have. So that was a great case.
I was very impressed with that, catching that pots and pan thing. I would have never thought to check for that. And Dr. Jeff has an excellent mold story, which he's done some very cool stuff with molds. It's everywhere.
In a second, yes, we'll talk about that, but we'll go back to the other one.
What's the other one?
The ferritin.
Sorry.
So, and that was a great find by Dr. Gill with the iron factor. I was running blood work on myself, and this is my blood work.
Wow.
Ferritin, which is the storage of iron in the liver, was high on myself, and I would not have known this unless I tested this back in 2020. It was at the high end of normal. And when I ran blood work just a few weeks ago, I decided to throw the iron in, or the ferritin and the iron back in there, and saw it was this high. I would have never known because I had no symptoms. There's a pretty popular doctor around the area that likes to say, test, don't guess, and this is a prime example of something of testing and looking at these factors, because I would have never known that this was an issue on myself. So luckily, it's going to be a simple fix, because a medical phlebotomy or donating blood will drop these factors down pretty low, as well as Dr. Gill's case. If someone has a high iron count or hemochromatosis, the medical phlebotomy works very well as far as dropping those levels down. But now, yes, going to the next one and talk about the mold. VCStest.com. I'm giving you guys homework tonight for special patients. I did my mold lecture back in 2019, and the different amount of cases that I was finding on patients with mold just was mind-boggling to me. And I have to emphasize, there's toxic molds and there's outdoor allergen molds. The outdoor allergen molds we address as, yes, a pH issue, being too alkaline, readjusting your pH with calamine, apple cider vinegar, things of that nature. But the toxic indoor molds are more of a problem for certain individuals, because these mycotoxins create chronic inflammation. And some of the symptoms that patients have: fatigue, weakness, headaches, lightheaded, memory issues, joint pains, skin sensations, shortness of breath, anxiety, depression, sinus congestion, chronic cough, vertigo, red eyes, hormonal imbalance, unresolved issues of fibromyalgia, Epstein-Barr virus, Lyme, these things, this mold stuff is in schools, churches, old buildings, homes, dorms, apartments, libraries. 1/4 of the population cannot detoxify mold from their system. So if you feel like those symptoms and you may be being exposed to something like this, vcstest.com is where you want to start. This is a $10 test that you pay for the results. There's an overall positive and negative and a biotoxin positive and negative. If the biotoxin part is positive, then we've got a Quest mold blood panel we could run with you, and I've got a urine mycotoxic Great Plains laboratory test we could run on you and go from there. More information from there. More information on.
I actually am. Now, this is exciting. So if you're thinking of come here, I can help the decline, I can help feed you, but nothing's ever turned it around. For you doctors out there, because I've seen a bunch that they never knew they had. Fingers up, feet up, throat out. That's how it works. So this lady comes in, and I sent her to the ALS clinic. She said, I'm not going. Why? She said, they're not going to do anything. You do something. So,
into an area you don't want to be. So I recommend that the men out there check their aromatizing pathway before they ever do this testosterone. Otherwise, you're going to be driving that estrogen into the prostate, potentially causing damage to the prostate and or worse effects. So we recommend that before you ever do a testosterone supplement, you actually do aromatizing pathway.
this guy was my patient. I got out a little order here. This guy's the gym guy. He's all buffed up. He's huge. Great guy. He comes in. His biggest concern was, despite this, he said, look, prostate cancer is all over my family. I'm terrified of prostate cancer. With his estradiol that high, he's pushing himself right into it, and he had no clue he was doing this. It's a major problem out there that you don't want to get into. Now, please watch this little clip. You're not going to believe this. Just watch it.
So when I walked in the room, I said, you don't feel like a female at all, do you? And she said, no, I actually feel like a man. As a matter of fact, I'm in construction. I do construction work. The conversation went deeper. This gets a little sensitive, but went deeper. She said, I went as far as I dated women most of my life. It was a complete disaster. I never felt right about it. I always sabotaged the relationships. I felt like something was wrong inside of me. When we ran her hormones, we found, she's only 44, her DHEA is in the dumpster, her progesterone's in the dumpster, her pregnenolone's in the dumpster, and her testosterone's high. I said, did you ever have ovarian cysts? She said, oh my gosh, all the time. I had cysts breaking all the time. I mean, I was constantly in pain with it. She said, also, I said, you got no fats. You need cholesterol, you need good fats to make your hormones. I said, how were you fed as a kid? Well, she said, I lived on gravy and fried foods. I smoked my gallbladder, I had it removed, and she said, I don't have any gallbladder. I said, there.
Numbers pretty easily. And we've got a great cardiac heart panel that we're running at the office. So if you want an in-depth look at your heart, swing in and we can do some very cool things. And follow up further with this, Dr. Gill's going to talk about the oxidized LDL part of this.
Well, to add to what Jeff was saying, and I know you've seen this too, Randy, on blood work, many times what we see is we see elevated LDLs. We see them constantly all the time. And Jeff's right, the small particle, the dense is not good. But if the LDL is not oxidized, the LDL doesn't have an effect. It's just a protein that carries the fat back and forth to the liver. So when it's oxidized, that's when it starts to destroy the lining of the artery or vein. That's when it starts to destroy it, and that's when it starts to set up the plaquing process. So if those LDLs are high but not oxidized, and this is one of the places where blood work, if it's read right, done right, you can fix the patient. My daughter, as these two gentlemen know, was born without a thyroid. So basically when that first one up there, that TSH or thyroid stimulating hormone, when that's above 3, I'll get a call from the lab saying, hey, you realize it's above 3. Now this lady here has a functioning thyroid, but it's 4.42, and they sent her home and said everything's normal. Now, my daughter without a thyroid's above 3, and I get the call. This lady at 4.42, they tell her she's normal. Now the range for that number should be about 1.6 to 2.1, and for the doctors out there. And basically what you want to know, you got to also pattern that to the symptoms. So this patient right here, what you're looking at is a hypothyroid, dry skin, hair falling out, constipation, gut problems, and also mood problems. Once we put her on the stuff, the protocol, not only did we fix that, but you can see she's also have a conversion problem in there too, where she can't convert.
Hear how these guys went over your blood. Go to your doctor and give him one of these tests. You know what he's going to tell you? You need a colonoscopy. You need a flu shot. They do it to everybody. This is what you want from your tests. People run expensive tests. You guys mostly don't even get a call back from the doctor. We need to run all this stuff. They won't take the time to call you. It's been a waste of time to run all these tests. Dr. Gill has taught reading blood chemistry to the physicians for continuing education. That's been a wonderful asset in the practice. Dr. Jeff has a functional medicine degree, which has been a wonderful addition to the practice. Now, we had a special trip to Standard Process. If I can show you, here's the crew sitting there, and we're going to show you, Tony did a great job making some recordings about what it's like to go to a functional food farm that makes supplements. It was an incredible experience.
Have any questions, with a little luck, I can answer it. If I can't answer it, I can find the answer, but this is 100% certified organic. I'm sure you heard all that up there. Wisconsin's the second most active organic state in the United States. That takes us about 1.5 crops. We get 4 crops of hay a year, so the other 2.5 crops have a lot of nice organic dairies that would like our hay. So it's nice in that way, and that we have an outlet. We don't put the same crop on the same field for a long time. So we have 900 acres, but this year 330 of them aren't used for an SP crop. And so I'll show you when we get on the wagon, that'll be the fun part of the day. And I think the rain's gonna hold off. But we have a lot of corn and soybeans, but they're not for us, we sell them. Corn and soybeans are so totally different from a vegetable crop, and such a great rotation away from the things we truly need and that we're trying to concentrate on. I tell people too, like, we do tons of cover crops, we do tons of vegetables, but we don't have a lot of carbon. So if you guys garden it all, if you pick your spinach, what you're left with is dirt. If you go down the line, pick our kale, anything, chop or alfalfa, you're left with nothing. And so these row crops that we sell off the farm too are like a 7-foot high corn stalk, and we're gonna combine 1 foot of an ear. There's 7 foot of carbon we can leave. And so to really have the most soil life, we need fungal pathways as well as the bacteria. So all the green stuff.
Now what's great about this library is, you know, since this is Dr. Lee's legacy, this really kind of anchors us as a company to where our roots were, where we came from, so we can always remember where we started and what we're about as an organization. If you look around this room, all these books, everything was his. The desk was his. It really is a 1761 chair. So everything was here. And really kind of a neat thing, if you look at the dictionary over there, that was his dictionary. I think it's a 1915 published date. The word vitamin's not in it. So kind of tells you the state of research when he was a young man and was coming up through and started doing research himself. Dr. Lee was a dentist by training. He didn't practice. He became a dentist because he wanted to be better at making dental tools. And he went to Marquette to med school to be a dentist. At the same time did a startup business, which, you know, little
glass bottle in Palmer College was the first thing we took. Popped that plastic thing. It was 9 in a little box. So I feel old now.
You are. So this is, if you look through here, you start to see some of the legacy of Dr. Lee. If you look, this was a building of his in Milwaukee, and it's not what the average guy's up to in his spare time.
No.
He's doing research. That's what he did. It's what he loved. It's what kind of drove him. And as you get through the plan, I want you to think about some things. Like this little device here is a tablet press. Wait till you see the tablet press we run now. And the one behind is a juicer. He actually was, he wanted to be able to make your own juices at home. And so he made and marketed one of those in the 40s. This is a capsule filler. So one capsule at a time. And you compare that to what we do today. And if you come on down, so this is him a little later in life. The P-51 Mustang fighter plane. There was things that he did. He was an absolute genius. But that's where he really kind of made his money early on, and that allowed him to do the things he wanted to do, a standard process, and support it and get it going. So kind of neat.
Yes,
and one last thing. This is really important. It doesn't look like a lot, but when you get down here, you see these castings. These were aluminum castings for motors. He also had a variable speed drill, hand drill, one of the first ones ever. I have one. I found one, so I have my own. But these castings for his motors, his drills, whatever he was doing, he felt were inferior and thought they were reflecting poorly upon his end product. He felt so strongly about it, he bought a foundry, started making them himself. That philosophy is still prevalent in our company today, and hence the reason we have a farm and try to produce as many of our raw materials as we can, because we can